On February 9, 2001, 10 miles south of Oahu, a Los Angeles-class fast attack submarine performed an emergency ballast blow, inadvertently violently surfacing directly into the underside of a Japanese student research vessel. 10 minutes after the collision with the USS Greeneville, the Ehime Maru sank. The USS Greeneville had been performing a standard public relations mission, a quick out-and-about cruise with civilians, members of the Congress, journalists, and other so-called opinion makers, as part of the Navy's campaign for ongoing funding of the U.S. nuclear fleet. The civilians were referred to as distinguished visitors, or DVs. These types of cruises had been arranged for notable DVs in the past, such as James Cameron and Tipper Gore, whose photograph here would call into question who exactly was at the controls when the Ehime Maru was struck. This particular DV expedition had been arranged by a retired rear admiral and carried 16 civilians, 8 CEOs, 6 of their wives, and a freelance sports writer plus his wife. The U.S. commander of the submarine division of the Pacific Fleet was present as well. Before leaving harbor, it was noted that one of the sonar display monitors was not working. Around 12:30, sonar detected the Ehime Maru, along with other surface vessels in the area, and it was originally tracked as traveling away from the submarine, but the tracking officer reportedly stopped tracking rather quickly because several of the DVs were in his way. Just before the show-off maneuvers, the Ehime Maru was noted as being 7 miles away. The submarine began a series of impressive maneuvers, rolling, tilting, accelerating, but apparently multiple DVs maintained conversations with sonar technicians throughout. At 1:30 p.m., the commander prepared for an emergency dive followed by an emergency main ballast blow. After all this wild maneuvering, procedure called for the captain to maintain his course and speed for a full 3 minutes in order to re-establish all sonar contacts, but they only did so for 90 seconds. The sonar reacquired the Ehime Maru, but this time identified it as a different vessel, so they couldn't use its previous information to continue plotting its course and speed. Next, the submarine came to periscope depth and performed a low-magnification visual examination of the area. This examination was again cut short by the commander, who decided to perform the next required high-magnification visual examination himself. Rather than performing a full 3-minute, 360-degree scan as required, the commander looked in the direction of where the sonar contacts were thought to be, saw nothing, and stated to the room that he had no visual contacts. During this time, the submarine's fire control officer was absorbed in trying to track down this third mystery contact, not looking at the dot that was actually the Ehime Maru creeping closer. When the commander reported no visual contact in that area, the fire control officer looked down, assumed the dot on his sonar must be an error, and manually moved the Maru's dot 9,000 yards away. The emergency dive was completed at 1:40 p.m., and 2 of the civilian visitors were invited to sit at the ballast tank controls. At 1:42 p.m., the commander ordered execution, and the attack submarine blasted towards the surface. 45 seconds later, the Greeneville's rudder cut the Ehime Maru in half, with it sinking in less than 10 minutes. Because of the state of the ocean and the state of the submarine's ballast tanks, the only way the submarine could help was to stay out of the way and call for the Coast Guard. Of the 35 people on board, the U.S. Coast Guard only ever pulled 26 from the ocean. 4 of the dead were Japanese high school students, 2 of them the teachers, the other 3 being the ship's crew. A court of inquiry found that the submarine commander had been mostly responsible, despite the presence of the commander of the entire Pacific submarine fleet. The lack of intentional misconduct or criminal intent meant there would be no courts-martial for the incident, and all penalties would be non-judicial and administrative. The commander was pronounced to have been in dereliction of duty and was given a suspended sentence of losing 1 month's pay. The sentence was delayed by 6 months and would be waived with 6 months of good behavior. He was also given a verbal reprimand that made it clear his resignation was expected. The U.S. naval consequences boiled down to a lot of cash changing hands, multiple bad marks in the permanent records of several officers, and the resignation with full honors of another.